So, I took the plunge, played Star Rail, and I thought I'd share my thoughts as a sort of review for the game from the point of view of a Genshin player who was only really slightly messed around with Honkai Impact because that's just way too complicated, even for me. So, let's jump right into it. First, a little too long, didn't watch, don't really care about the nitty-gritty details. It's a good game, there's a great foundation for it. There are some quality of life things that I think could be implemented to make the gameplay smoother and have a little more unique experience. But overall, it's fantastic. I'm sure anyone would have an awesome time with it. So now let's get into the little nitty-gritty details. The pros. The game is really pretty. It's clear that they put a lot of detail into the character design, setting, and animations. There are tons of small details, like the fact that each character has their own phone case, which reflects their personality or appearance. At first, I was a little confused by the contrasting designs that so many characters had. I mean, Himeko looked like she stepped out of ancient Greece, while March looked like a fantasy sci-fi e-girl. But then I got into the story, and I learned about the different universes and the world, and I realized that it made sense that they'd look different because they came from different cultures. Another point is that it is incredibly funny. While the Traveler in Genshin Impact is arguably a puppy-like person, especially with how I play them, the Trailblazer is like a curious and perpetually annoyed cat. This leads them to just not give a fuck. Found a random cup of what might be coffee, take a bunch of sips. Found a toilet artifact, let's use it! And that's not even considering how sassy they can be when responding to people, which leads to a lot of fun experiences. And the narrator is just sassy back to you, essentially going, what the hell is wrong with you half the time. It's awesome. There are also a lot of really cool elements to combat, especially the auto battle feature, which can make the grinding easier. Find one of those clacks things, set it to a bunch, and then you just let the game play itself. It will also mitigate some of the wariness that would come along with watching the same types of battles constantly, which is something I'll get into later. The music is also amazing. Not too surprising coming from a Hoyoverse game, but I still have to say it. Take the Journey, the song that plays when you're in the train, was just amazing. I loved it. The lyrics are soft, so they don't distract from the scene itself, but it also adds a lot of emphasis to the game's overall theme, and it just wants you to keep going. It's a great song. And there are a lot of small details which add a lot of life into the game. Things like texting, which they took up from Tears of Themis, characters having talents that let them prepare for battle beforehand, and just the thing I mentioned before, where each character has their own phone. It makes the game feel real. It makes the things happening around you so much more intriguing, and it helps draw you in. It's just an overall really fun experience. It takes a lot of elements from other Hoyoverse games, but most of it seems to be built around the Genshin Impact engine, with the menus and stuff looking pretty much the exact same way. It's just a reskin, basically. The story also seems really interesting. There are a lot of awesome plot hooks already put into it, and it promises a great, fun journey. That being said, there are some things I didn't like about the game. They're not going to make me stop playing, but they definitely make it a little rough around the edges, especially when you're just trying to get into the game for the first time. So there's this thing called techniques, and you can use them in the field, and they're really cool, but you can only use so many at a time while running around. At the start, you only have 3 charges to use each of your character's techniques, and they don't automatically come back. You have to find little purple barrel things to break to get 2 points back. But did I know that when I was running around? No, because the tutorials are not fantastic. They're really lacking. The parts that they have are well designed, but there are a lot of things that seem to be missing. The aforementioned barrels, the fact that there is a shop in the game, and the fact that you can escape from battle by pausing. What does this item do? Heck if I know, the game didn't tell me. I also felt like I should know more than I did as I was playing. I'm not sure if the severity of this issue was made worse by the fact that I didn't really get into Honkai Impact, and I know that, but it sure doesn't help. Pauses on characters' faces make it clear that the moment is meant to be important, and it's supposed to be like, oh my gosh, it's this person, but I don't know who they are. And it's not just the lack of background knowledge. Our main character seems to know more than us, despite them being an amnesiac who may have just been born. They mention things like the blue, aeons and other terms without any context. And if it was like NPCs and then our character was like, hey, what are you talking about? It'd be one thing. It was a whole other thing when my character was like, oh yeah, you're gonna go vacationing at the Blue? And I was like, what the heck is that? You can talk to the other characters to learn more about it when you're on the train a little bit, but it's a long while after the initial learning of the terms, especially if you go to do a bunch of side quests and exploring, so it can leave you confused. It's also really easy to miss if you don't choose to talk to a character at this random moment when you don't have to. There are also so many little things and no real guides. Because let's be real, the teleporting toilet and robots are cute little touches, but once you interact with them, it's unclear if there's a quest line with it or not. I sat on that toilet so many times. I kept respawning and going back to the room and going to different places, and I'm still not convinced there isn't something tied to it. It does make the world feel more real, like I said before, but it can be incredibly overwhelming. Yes, it's realistic for there to be stuff going on that is not important or doesn't lead anywhere or that you can't follow, but it's also realistic to go to the bathroom and sleep and do other things that are not put into a game or a story because they're not important to the arc. You can bend the rules slightly to make the experience more interesting or more enjoyable, and I just want somebody to tell me where I'm going, because I get overwhelmed easily. The other thing is you can't jump. This probably doesn't feel like a big thing, but it felt so restricting. I wanted to jump. When I play Genshin, I jump everywhere. I don't know why, but it was annoying that I couldn't. And sure, there's not a lot of places you can't really go to in the space station that jumping is required, but like running around in the new town, there are guardrails, and I don't want to walk to the entrance. I just want to jump over the guardrail and grab the book that I see on the table. Please, let me jump hoyovers. The party is limited. Weaknesses and breaking shields are seen as a very important aspect of the battle, because then you do more damage, and also it just makes things easier for you. But when you can only bring 4 people into the fight, and enemies have a range of weaknesses, and you're not sure what weakness is going on what enemy, it can be a struggle to find the perfect party. In the other games, it's okay to bring non-optimal parties, because as long as you're not using a cryo character on a cryo abyss mage to try and break the cryo shield, you're gonna be fine. Even if it's not optimal, Animo can do something about it. From what I understood of Honkai the little I played, it was pretty much the same thing. Like, yeah, it would be better if you had the right element or the right type, but you can still punch the guy in the face and he's gonna go down. It is still possible in Star Rail to do that, but because it increases the damage you can do and it adds effects that lets them do dot damage, it's so much more important, so the limit is so much more prominent. And frankly, the party being limited is another problem, because then battles can be a bit repetitive. It hasn't really started to wear on me yet as I play, but every ultimate triggers the exact same cutscene, and you don't have the free range of movement and creativity as you do in other Hoyoverse games. To me, it feels more like the battle system in Tears of Themis, which I found got repetitive because you're just doing the same things over and over and over again. And while the auto battle feature will help because you don't have to pay attention to it, I personally like getting to fight in my RPG games because fighting is part of the appeal of an RPG game. If they added something like a baton pass system that we saw in Persona 5, then I feel like things would get easier. Even if we could just switch in one character, it would help immensely. It would also make bringing Harmony characters more enticing, I think, because quite frankly, the Harmony characters they have now just don't cut it. Maybe it's just me, but the buffs aren't good enough, at least the ones that they have right now, to make it worthwhile to keep them around when I could have a hunter or a destructor. But that's a different rant that I don't want to get into. What is up with the food? The game offers food that boosts attack, healing, and all that fun stuff like you do in Genshin. but you can't use them in the middle of battle. And this is really frustrating when the game provides so few healing options. Now, I admit, I'm a support player. I like healing. Let me have healing options. I'm not expecting a Barbara or a Kokomi or anything else, but it's so limiting. And I can only use, like, 2 characters to heal, which takes up a slot, and is just no. If they could add something like the food bag that we have, then it would just be easier and it would make sense for us to have access to so much food. Finally, let's talk about the light cone menu. Let's say I looked at Dunhume and I went, "You need a new light cone, buddy." Why are they going to show me all the light cones for, say, Harmony or any other path? Yes, you can theoretically break characters out of their molds, and I understand that it is theoretically giving you options, but I don't get the buff, and it's just so cluttered. Since the light cones are more akin to weapons than they are artifacts, it feels like going, "Hey, let's pull up Albedo's weapon. Oh, look at all the bows." At least give me the option to hide the other light cones that are not relevant to him. And I don't want to see them if I'm not gonna use them. Please, for my sanity. And that's where I'll end this. Like I said, the cons aren't going to break the game. I'm gonna keep playing. Some quality of life things could make the game even better. Right now, 4 out of 5. We'll keep playing. We'll keep hoping for just little tweaks. But that's where I'm gonna end this. I think if you have the room in your PlayStation and or phone and or computer, because it's gonna have the same problem as every other Hoyoverse game where the goddamn thing is just such a huge file size. But that's, if you have the room, you would have a lot of fun with it, and I definitely suggest you do it. Have a great day. Stay safe. Goodbye.